story behind these films that's well worth remembering. When The Birth of a Nation premiered in 1915, it was a major national event. President Woodrow Wilson praised it. Attendance records were shattered. The film's grand scope and technical innovations made it the most successful motion picture of its day. It was also the most racist. Motivated in part by a desire to counteract this negative portrayal of blacks, a handful of African Americans decided to make their own films, giving birth to the genre called race movies.
The people who made these films were staunchly race conscious. They were clear that the kinds of black images that were in Hollywood films as epitomized by The Birth of a Nation, these coons and these Tom kind of characters, these Maid kinds of characters, were not out of the experience that they had of black life and culture.
The early black filmmakers had practically no access to theaters or movie-making expertise and very little money. The one thing they did have was a potential audience of millions of African Americans. And so, through the 1920s, 30s, and beyond, they struggled to create a separate cinema, a black reflection of Hollywood.
You look back at the catalogs, at the posters, at the descriptions of the films, you know, and you get the black, or they didn't say black then, the colored Rudolph Valentina, the sepia Mae West.
You only live once, you know.
Well, all right. I'll be here.
The brown Jean Harlow. They definitely were trying to create a parallel system. Black people wanted entertainment. I think no matter how hard times are, people want to be, you know, want entertainment. They want to relax. You know, they want to be taken away from their troubles.
Which wasn't always easy. Early on, most theaters either banned blacks altogether, put them in segregated, inferior seating, or confined them to late-night showings. So new movie houses opened up, catering exclusively to colored audiences. Over the years, they would show more than 500 films, produced by a couple dozen, mostly small companies. The dean of the group was Chicago's Oscar Micheaux.
He made some 33 feature films. He was quite a character, an amazing man, self-taught. He was actually a writer, used to write novels, and decided he would become a filmmaker. And he would take people, actors, who he would say, look, you know, I know you're good. You know you're good. But as long as you're black, you're never really going to get the roles in Hollywood. You know, why do you want to be an extra? Come work for me.
Oscar Micheaux's earliest surviving film, Within Our Gates, contained graphic scenes of lynching and an attempted rape. If not a direct reaction to Birth of a Nation, it was clearly a response to the times in which such a racist film would be acceptable entertainment.
She said you were a great reader, and I'm selling a fine new novel by a Negro author. Everybody is buying it and reading it. I want to show it to you.
Like most of his contemporaries, operating on a shoestring, Micheaux had to do a little of everything, from script to screen. Writer, producer, director, and in some films, like Murder in Harlem, a little acting. Very little.
That tall Negro did this.
While Micheaux was one of the few to make the transition from silent movies to talkies, others would come into their own then, including a soon-to-be famous face.
Spencer Williams, he is gone down in history as this buffoon, Andrew H. Brown, in Amos and Andy, the TV program.
What would I want to own a home for? I was still an unmarried spinster.
Actually, before he became into prominence on this TV show, he used to make his own films. He was a black independent filmmaker. The film for which he's best known is a film called Blood of Jesus, and it's a wonderful surrealistic film about black folklore, about black religion.
was mighty fine singing, Blake.
Thanks, Mr. Watson. Sure glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Spencer Williams again. This time with Herbert Jeffrey, the black equivalent of Roy Rogers. Riding the range for the Saturday matinee set was just another way in which these small and often amateurish productions filled a big void in the lives of African Americans.
Yes, come on.
But what about my bag?
Never mind your bag.
Back in the earlier period, where you had so few black images and very few positive black images. And so if you thought that there were going to be some positive images, people flocked to see it. They found out about it and they said, we've got to go and see it. And they understood that these films didn't have the support of the major studios, didn't have the equipment and the supplies, didn't have the technical experts to make it so that it would be slick the way they were from Hollywood. They accepted that. And they still took what they wanted to take from the experience of seeing the real elements that they wanted to see out of those films.
I'm awfully glad to have met you, and I've certainly enjoyed myself.
By the late 1940s, the major studios started waking up to the value, economic and moral, of a more accurate portrayal of African Americans. That was good for the country, but not for the trailblazers, who found it impossible to compete with Hollywood. For independent black filmmakers of race movies, it was the end of the movie and an era.